Good morning. My name is Bob de Hilster, and I'm here to present a paper titled The Ether. This paper is written by a gentleman who wishes to remain anonymous, so his name is on the paper is Ramsey. Now, I presented this paper last year as well, but it was only part of the paper. If you go to the last year's proceedings, you'll see that, I don't know, it's 40, 50, in kind of that range, the size of the paper, pretty big as it was. But after that, I continued to help him to get it put into latex, and now it is a 200-page paper. It's the last paper in your proceedings. In putting it into latex, I had to upload 301 figures and get it all in latex format so it could be printed in the book, and it is there in the book. Last year I presented it, and I had 38 slides. This year, if I really tried to do the same amount of effort to explain this paper, I would probably have 100 slides, which I didn't think anybody was going to sit around for, especially since I'm not an etherist. My model is a particle model, and I have offered my services to present this as I did the editing and with Ramsey to make the presentation. So I'm going to do just basically a summary today. And so we move on. This is in his abstract. The intent of this paper is to revise the assumptions associated with Einstein's relativity theories, thereby postulating an alternate theory somewhat analogous to Einstein's concepts, however, now compatible with the existence of ether. Therefore, as will be revealed, relativity and quantum mechanics, rather than it being disconnected, are then a part of one overall unified theory. In his preface, he makes this statement: it will eventually become crystal clear as to why the MMX, that's Michelson-Morley experiment, always demonstrates isotropy, specifically when performed on the rotating surface of the Earth, even in the presence of ether wind. If correct, Einstein's SRT main foundation block, validating the MMX is eliminated, and his relativity theories then collapse. As a result, the new groundwork of physics is required, and he calls it the ether. Okay, this is a introduction. Well, it's the table of contents. He has an introduction, and I'll point out that the ones in black are the ones I reported on last year. The ones in red are all new to the paper. So he has chapter 1 on special relativity, and he puts that along with what he calls the preferred frame special relativity, and we'll get into that just a bit. And then the second chapter was general relativity, but then he modifies it using a preferred frame. Chapter 3 was split. We only had half of chapter 3 last year, covering Michelson-Morley. The other half covered Kennedy-Thorndike, Sagnac, and the Michael-Gale experiments. Chapter 4 covered quantum mechanics, 5 experimental and observational proof of ether, and then to add to that, he has 12 appendices to give additional explanation. So what I would have to do is try to describe his theory in detail and cover all of those. I didn't think that was appropriate in the time allowed. Okay, the preferred frame, which is really key in his paper. In essence, this new pictorial theory defined in chapter 1 of this paper as the preferred frame special relativity, PF-SRT, combines Galilean transformation theory and Newton's theory, 3 dimensions of space, with Maxwell's EM theory, the velocity of light c relative to the observer to propose a new relativity theory somewhat equivalent to SRT. But now, in this case, the speed of light c is a function of the ether, not the observer. So everything he analyzes in terms of using c is with the ether, which is actually, I believe, an inflowing type of ether. How do you like that? Right to the conclusion. I hope you all enjoyed my, no, I shouldn't say that. But, again, it's difficult to really do justice to the paper. If you want to read how that preferred frame affects his theory, and it might have some value if you take the time to read it. In conclusions, Einstein's SRT and GRT, unlike quantum mechanics, are mathematical theories with some highly significant but overall very little everyday use value. Alternatively, considering the experiments presented with this article, PF-SRT and PF-GRT are highly practical theories. He does mention that throughout the paper about the practicality and the usefulness of his model. Obviously, as he's claiming, the originals are not so. Furthermore, most likely they are eventually profitable. As such, given sufficient time, this pragmatism will give impetus to overturn relativity. Okay, PF-SRT and PF-GRT are compatible with inflowing ether. Relativity and quantum mechanics are unified. The experiments and observation prove this inflowing ether is valid. And that's an overview of what he's talked about. It's a big paper. If it's in your line, if you're an etherist, please scan it, look over it. You may pick up some ideas from what he's talking about. Thank you. How long was that, Dave?
We're sitting at 7 minutes 30. We have 38 minutes left. Any questions?
Any questions?
Can you get a microphone, please? Come on, I got you guys trained for the whole week.
I just want to make an understanding of the word. Inflowing, does it mean that ether is keep flowing?
Inflowing towards the object.
Oh, okay.
It's similar to what Duncan uses. He has an inflowing ether.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And Duncan would like to say something?
Well, he posed the question, is it similar? I do not know without reading the paper whether it is similar, but one question I have in relation to the concept of inflowing ether is that the concept that I have developed requires outflowing ether as well as inflowing ether. And that poses some problems because at first glance, the momentum that's exerted by outflowing ether on matter should, if it's the same amount going in and out, equal the momentum that's exerted coming in.
Yeah, so
let me finish. So at first glance, that does not fit with gravity being a one-way force. Now, to meet that concern, I employ what we see every day on Earth, that molecules of water rise to the sky as separate molecules. Then they go through the process of joining together, and they form into droplets and then rain that comes down and strikes us. So you've got two different states, and it's the concept of two different states of ether that are utilized. The ether that is going out to space is comprised of separated ether cells. In space, the ether condenses into groups of ether, much like water changes, or the water molecules change into droplets or rain. And the ether that comes back in is the groups or the droplets of ether that have developed in space by condensation. Now let me just one more step, Bob. The gravity aspect of this is based on atomic matter being more space than substance. In other words, stuff, tiny stuff can go right through ordinary matter, atomic matter. Okay, the stuff that's coming in is big compared to the individual ether cells that are going out. So the collisions are much like fish in a fish net. If you've got a big fish that is trying to swim through a fish net, it's more likely to get caught. If you've got minnows going the other way, they're liable to go straight on through. And it's as simple, at least I conceive of that being very simple. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. Yeah, but because atomic matter is a structured thing with a lot of space, you can compare it to a fish net. And the minnows are going through practically unscathed. The big fish are coming back in, and they are hitting us. And there's the real force of gravity.
Now, I hope I don't misquote Ramsey here, but I don't remember, because I'm going from memory now, that he uses what I call shielding to generate a lesser force up to give you the net force down. And so his gravity would be, in that case, caused by just the inflow and no upward flow.
Yeah.
Your upward flow, because in the particle model I use, they're always there. Yeah. Just because you cancel it out and say it's a net doesn't mean they disappeared. They're always there, so there is a certain amount of pushing up,
yes,
as there is pushing down all the time. And so you can have this effect of various particles rising and falling for that reason, as well as thermal reasons. So, but Ramsey doesn't seem to mention the shielding effect. But you can read, since it's, I don't say it's like yours, but I suggest you at least scan over it and get the idea.
I agree, because if he doesn't have outflowing ether, then we're going to run out of ether from space. How are you going to have inflow unless you beef up the amount of ether that's in space that's available for inflow?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Bob, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I think that's the one. No. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to understand what he says here. To propose a new relativity theory somewhat equivalent to SRT, but now, in this case, the speed of light c is a function of the ether and not the observer. So what I'm trying to understand there is, if Einstein takes as a postulate that there is no ether and that c is relative to the observer, then how can he just come around and then take and say, no, I'm going to use C as a function of the ether, and then say he's merging the two. It seems, so I'm trying to
I think
understand
he
it.
gains the fact that the speed of light is constant with the ether if you put yourself as a reference frame in the ether. So you're kind of the observer with the ether and with the speed of light. So now you have a kind of his form of constant light.
Right. So the frame of reference tracks the observer and moves the ether at the same time. Yeah, interesting.
Any more questions? Okay, you have 30 minutes to fill? No, we're done. Okay, thank you so much for presenting this, and we appreciate Ramsey's contribution to the proceedings. So thank you very much.